Hello, everyone. I'm Gwyn McAlpine. I'm the Director of Knowledge Management Services from Perkins Coie. Amy Monahan and I led 4 of the projects here with the LegalRnD class. And Amy, unfortunately, cannot be here. She is our Practice Innovations Manager on my team. She is someone who came from Chicago, Kent, and has a bit of that kind of hybrid legal technologist, which is sort of a new developing role that you are all learning how to become, getting educated to become. So, this was pretty fun for us to kind of see how our different backgrounds kind of played into this student project. So when this concept came to us, our CIO, who is my boss, met Professor Lina at a conference, and they started talking, and I have no idea if drinks were involved. But they came up, they started talking about this concept with having law firms and other legal organizations be partner law firms, partner organizations to the students to provide some projects and help mentor through them. And this was obviously very exciting to us, but we didn't really know how to structure it or the framework of what this would look like. But we looked at this as sort of a gift of free student labor. And this was something that I see some nods. This was something that we didn't want to kind of pass up this opportunity. So it was a very short time frame. I think we started talking around Thanksgiving or a little before to come up with the framework and the problems in what we wanted the students to address. And so we had to kind of think about how many projects would we run, what would that look like, what kinds of projects would we present, how would we involve our attorney sponsors versus the roles and responsibilities that Amy and I would have as well. But we were pretty excited about the opportunity to work with the students for a number of reasons, and I'll kind of get more into them. But one is just the product itself. This is the opportunity to work on some projects and see what we get out of it. But another is that we are very focused on innovation at our firm, and as I think many people in this space feel, we're chronically understaffed. So it's very difficult for us to find the bandwidth to sometimes to execute on these ideas that we have. So the first step was that we had to really frame this partnership, and one of the early decisions that we had to make was, what were these projects that we were going to do? What were the ideas that we had for student projects? So the 4 that we came up with are ones that we knew about. We knew that these were problems that people were having at the firm, or these were processes that were done in a very manual basis. In some cases, when people describe how they're doing the work, you just, kind of want to do a facepalm because it just sounds so ripe for automation. And the way that it's being done is so inefficient. However, these were problems that we did not have the bandwidth to address. So as I said, we're understaffed. The other thing that I think is important to realize when you're doing some of these innovation type projects is that the quality of time is as important as the quantity of time. So you may have the time, the hours to work on these projects, but when you have a day job that you're doing, you don't necessarily have that brain space to do the brainstorming and to really think of a new idea. So this was something where we had these projects that we wanted to have addressed, and we thought this was a great opportunity to turn them over to the students and see what they could do. I will point out that on all of these projects, and I think the students probably learned this, we did not have a fixed solution in mind. We didn't know what you were going to build. We just knew it was a problem. So we kind of threw it at you with, let's see what you can come up with, and good luck to you. So we had pretty flexible expectations coming out of this. Some of the things that we wanted to get, in addition to seeing what the product was testing out this process. So if we are to, kind of looking at that chronic understaffing problem that we have, how are some ways that we can loop people into our projects and get them to help with the type of work that we're doing? So at our firm, on something like NeoLogic, that is run out of the KM department. We are the ones who use that product. We don't have any attorneys who are trained on NeoLogic. So it's not something where we can just turn this over to different practice groups and say, go build something and we'll be here to troubleshoot. This is more of they come to us to be able to build. So we were looking for some ideas on how could we work with these different practice groups in an effective manner. So you heard from the students on the 4 projects that, that we used for this semester. The projects that we chose, what we kind of discovered early on, is that we needed to choose projects that were really rooted in legal analysis. So when we kind of looked at some of the things at our firm where we were trying to develop, new innovative ways of doing them, whether it's a process or a service, some of the things that were on our wish list were not really appropriate to turn over to the students. And for example, a matter management platform. We would love to do some work around that and improve some things around that. But the students don't have any practice experience. So that didn't really make sense to try and turn over, here's our problem on matter management, please fix this for us. We really needed something that students who had finished 1 or 2 years of law school could dig in and tackle. And I know it was challenging for all of you because we gave you problems where you had to, become a securities expert, become a GDPR expert, and so on. So there was a lot of work that had to be done there, but we knew that you guys could do that. You already had the tools to be able to learn a new legal area. So these are our attorney sponsors. The process that we used is, a lot of the teams kind of described this process. The way that we used our attorney sponsors, because we didn't really know what to expect out of this program, we hadn't done it before, we wanted to kind of preserve their time a little bit. So for each of the projects, we had an attorney sponsor who was a subject matter expert. And with them, we set the expectation to meet with the students 3 times. I think only 1 team actually met with their sponsor 3 times. I think the rest were twice. And that would be to give an initial background, to orient them to the problem in the area of law and how we do things today, to check in with them partway through the semester to validate the direction that the students were going and their potential solution, and then at the end to see the final presentation. I'm not sure that any of them really saw the final presentation, but we had kind of those check-ins along the way to show them the process with that. So initially the teams had to research their problems and process map. One thing that I did not expect was that I think that initial phase of the research, the process mapping, deciding how to approach this probably took about half the semester. I think we initially thought that would be, a couple of weeks or so coming into it, but there was a lot there. There was a lot there to unpack. That probably took about half the semester. I think most people started building around spring break. So the teams got in and started building their apps and then testing it. And I know a number of them realized pretty quickly that even if you're going through the process of process mapping, when you get into the technology and you start building things, there are just extreme levels of detail that you need to focus on. So another thing that we had to address was the logistics of how to handle this. So Amy and I are located in Portland, Oregon. Students are all in East Lansing, Michigan. Our attorney sponsors were located in Seattle, Portland, Denver, and one of them was in Italy, which we didn't really realize when we asked her to be an attorney sponsor, but that's okay. So we started, the way we set up our meetings was weekly check-ins, and I'm not sure if it was intentional or accidental, but we ended up doing those by video call, and that was really very helpful for us. I think that actually when I kind of look at that as a success factor, where I think it helped us build more of a rapport with the students. You might have noticed that 5 out of 8 of the men on our teams are named Zach or Andrew. So that helped us distinguish between all the Zach and Andrews. And I think it helped with our project moving forward. So we really made an effort to try and be on video for all of those calls, except for some of the very early mornings with our attorney in Italy. So what we gained out of this, obviously the work product is a huge piece of this. This is really exciting for us to get these apps. They're going to be transferred over to our instance of Neoto-Logic, and then we can continue to build on them. I was talking to some of the students last night about what our plans are with what to do with these products, and we have to kind of figure that out with looking at the apps themselves, and then also talking with our subject matter experts and others at the firm who work in those practice areas. As I think you've all learned through this process, it does require a lot of subject matter expertise on these products, and so we kind of need to find those who are sort of willing to work with us, as well as the ones that we need to drive forward. But I think they're all in a really good state to move forward. The process itself was something that was important to us to learn from, and we did looking at how the students approach things, some things with team dynamics and communication that were kind of interesting learning for us to see how to manage a team that's working like this. Also how they approach things in Neota logic. Amy has great Neota skills, but she found there were a number of things where some of the students brought ideas that they had done that were different than how she would have approached it, and it was very creative, and she thought that was a really interesting way to approach that. And then, as I mentioned, the legal technologist profile, this is something that we talk about a lot. As we grow on the knowledge management side, we are doing more and more with technology, and we have this kind of constant internal debate. Do we take technologists and teach them the law, or do we take lawyers and teach them technology? Within our technology department, Amy and I are the only lawyers. So our view as a firm has largely been to take technologists and teach them the law. And I feel like this experience really validated for us that particularly on these types of apps that are so rooted in legal analysis, we really want people with that legal background to teach them the technology. So that was something that we suspected, but this process really validated that for us. So what could have gone better? I think our attorney sponsor model, I think we tried to protect them too much at the beginning with the amount of time. And some of this was just the way that this developed and not knowing what we were getting into. We intentionally designed a framework for them that was limited in their time. But if we do this again, what I would do is involve them more early on to have them be part of figuring out the problems. Because we were operating under a pretty short time frame, Amy and I kind of came up with the problems and then found attorney sponsors to match that. I think a better approach would be to have a longer process where we're working with attorneys and having them come to us and helping to flesh out the problems so that they have more investment in that and more engagement in that. It's not to say that our attorney sponsors were not invested, they were, but we had a lot of issues with scheduling. We didn't have that many meetings with them, so when we ran into scheduling issues, it kind of pushed things out. So I think if we had designed a model that was where they were engaged, maybe not weekly, but maybe every other week or something like that, I think that would have helped the students more. There was an inherent scope limitation because the students, don't have access to our systems or under any kind of NDA. There was, necessarily that kind of limited the scope. So on a couple of the projects, for example, we had thought that using Kira, which is a machine learning contract analytics tool, to help with those projects would have been a really nice supplement. So for example, on the GDPR, when they're doing the contract review, can we train models in Kira and use that to extract the information from those agreements? It's a great idea, but just from the logistics of access to systems, that would not have worked. If they had worked on training models, that's not something that we would have been able to get the benefit of. The other thing, I think all of our students encountered this, we gave you really big problems. and so there was some, was going through the semester trying to figure out what can you address realistically in the course of the semester. And I think all the teams did a really good job of trying to figure out what is it that we can do and do well. I think the SEC team, as an example, they started with, looking at the whole 10K and then quickly realized, oh no, wait, let's just look at a few items. And then, oh no, wait, let's scale that back a little more. But then it's a framework that we can repeat and apply to other sections of it. And then I think we probably could have done a little more orientation up front with the students, maybe a little bit on kind of a law firm 101 boot camp, some project basics. One thing we realized, it's been a while since I've been in school. We all work differently. So there are some things with kind of calendaring that I think we could have sort of established a bit of a baseline first. Small stuff, but we probably could have used maybe our first meeting for a project orientation and how to move forward instead of diving right into the problem. So would we do this again? Yes, but maybe not 4 projects at once. It was a fairly significant time investment on Amy's and my part. It was probably more than I think we originally anticipated, but we found it incredibly rewarding. As I said, going through the process was important, but we really loved working with the students. At one point in the semester, we did kind of debate, do we scale back some of the meeting cadence or alternate so we're not both on all the meetings every week, and we just didn't want to. We had a lot of fun working with the students, and so it was more time commitment. That's all right. It was great. It was a very rewarding experience. All right, thank you.